Alright, so this recipe is actually pretty easy. As you see here, I have my ground chuck. I've purchased an 80/20. This was pre-frozen, and that's why it looks like that. The best one to use is the freshly ground because it's going to be more tender. So, as always, ingredients amounts are at the bottom of the video. Right now I'm putting in my finely minced onion and garlic. I always put that into my meat for my meatballs, and I have some fresh basil from the garlic. I've minced that kind of fine and small as well because I don't like chunks of basil in my meatballs. And this recipe is actually really easy, easier than most people will think. I prefer a polio string cheese to stuff my meatballs with, but I don't have that available, so I'm just going to use regular shredded cheese. So this recipe calls for the onion, garlic, basil, some onion powder, garlic powder that I'm putting in now, salt, pepper, a little bit of oregano. So they're actually pretty simple. That's for the seasoning. So now I'm putting in my onion powder. The other seasoning that I use is I use Italian style breadcrumbs. You can either make them from scratch or you can buy the pre-made one. Your choice. I know it may look like it's heavily seasoned, but I've never had any complaints. People love the meatballs I've made. No one has ever said it's overly seasoned. It looks that way, but you have to remember that it's chuck and it's beef, and you don't want to under-season meatballs because that's just gross. So as you can see, I had put in the breadcrumbs and I put in some grated Parmesan cheese, and I'm putting an egg in because it's a binder and it's going to hold the meatballs together. Sometimes I use 1 or 2 eggs. It really depends on how much meat. Here I have about a 1 3/4 pounds of 80/20 ground chuck. I prefer ground chuck for meatballs, and I definitely prefer 80/20 because it keeps it nice and moist. And I'm putting in my oregano, rubbing them between the fingers to get the flavors out. And now the important thing about meatballs is, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be very gentle with them, because the more you work your meat and the more you go in there and mash all your seasonings in, the less tender they're going to be. There's no reason to try tricks like putting in milk or soaking in breadcrumbs. You don't have to do any of that. First of all, buy fresh meat that's ground nicely. And see, this meat is frozen, and they still came out kind of tender. Not as tender they would be if I had purchased it fresh. So you're going to go in there and you're going to shake your bowl around and make sure all your seasoning, kind of gets as incorporated as possible without using your hands, okay? Then you're going to go in there with your hands, and like I said, you're going to be gentle. Keep, flipping the meat around, up and down. No need to mash your fingers into the meat. You can do it a little bit if you want to make sure that every little piece is seasoned, but just go in pretty gentle. I've seen people go in and start mushing with both hands and squeezing, and it's just too much work, because you're already going to rework the meat when you have to shape them into meatballs. So there's no need to work them in so rough in the beginning. You're going through 2 processes of working your meat through. You keep mushing it together like a monster, and your meatballs are going to be dry. And no one will probably tell you, because they all love you and they don't want to hurt your feelings, but then no one's ever going to eat them again. So, see? This is it. That's all. Don't touch them. Don't do anything more to them besides shape them up, okay? That's it. Done. Okay. So, as I stated before, I am using a shredded cheese, okay? So now what you're going to want to do is you want to get a pretty decent sized meat. You want it to be a little bit bigger than a golf ball sized meatball, okay? Because the bigger they are, the easier it is to stuff. And what you're going to do is you're just going to create a little hole down into the middle. And you're going to take your cheese and stuff it. Now you can stuff this with bacon, mushrooms, cheese, whatever you want to stuff it with, okay? Be creative. I've done it with cheese and bacon. It's actually pretty delicious. And then what you're going to do is you're going to pull the meat over. Okay, now I'm going to do this for you once or twice more, so don't get nervous. And you just throw them, left to right, like a snowball. It kind of pats them in. Do it gently. Don't chuck it like you're pissed off. Just back and forth gently. It kind of keeps them together without having to pat them down. You don't want to pat them down tightly, because, again, you'll be working the meat too much and they'll be, hard or dry. Okay, so there you go. That's about the size you want. All right, a little bit I don't know. I guess that's a golf ball size. A little bit bigger. Not small, unless you're making them for kids. Then you would make them a little smaller, I guess. The good thing about making them bigger size is that people get to just have 1 or 2 meatballs as opposed to saying, oh, those are small, let me grab 6, and then food gets wasted. So they see the size of the meatballs, they grab 2, and then nothing gets wasted. Okay, so there you go. As you can see it again. All right, just stuffing the cheese in. Put as much or as little as you want. I'm not going too heavy here because, I mean, I just wanted to show the concept of stuffed meatballs. I wasn't necessarily in the mood for them tonight. I was just in the mood for regular meatballs, but who wants to see a video of just regular meatballs? So, of course, I have to be fancy. So, again, you know, you just bring the meat over the top, throw it back and forth like a snowball. Don't overwork it. Don't be a beast. You know, it's a little relaxing. Just keep doing that until all of your meatballs are made. Now, I just want to reiterate, the sauce for these meatballs is the same exact sauce I use for my lasagna. And to find that recipe, just watch from the 1-minute mark my lasagna video. Of course, I will include the ingredients I use for the sauce at the bottom of the video. Okay, so I'm going to continue here making my meatballs. No need for you to see it a million times. I'm sure you've gotten the idea of it. All right, so let's move on. Alright, so once you're done with all of your meatballs, you want to put it in a really wide bottom pot so you can fit them all in one layer, okay? And if you can't do that because you don't have a big enough pot, that's okay too. Just gently place them on top of each other. And you want to bring them up to a boil, okay? And once they get to a boil, you want to put them down to a low simmer and leave them there for about 15 or 20 minutes, okay? If you're not sure if they're done, take them out, take a little piece off. If they're done, they're done. They're not, put that meatball back in and keep going. Alright, now let me show you what it looks like. I just wanted to show you my cute little pasta dish. I haven't had a chance to use it yet, so I'm like, oh, you know what? Even though I'm only putting meatballs in here, but whatever, I'm serving pasta too. I'm just not putting it in the same plate. So basically, I serve this like family style, you know. I put all the meatballs in the big bowl so that everybody can have a chance to just grab at them. I mean, when there's multiple people eating, you know, when it's just my husband and I, then I serve him and then serve myself. But there's my mother-in-law's here, so might as well have it family style. As you can see, some of them kind of opened up, and that's because I had them in there too long, okay? So what you want to do is you want to make sure that after a half an hour, you check them. And once it comes up to, I didn't mention this before, but once it comes up to like a soft, slow boil, what you're gonna want to do is you're gonna put it on a low, like a low, not a 3 or a 2, but low, and just let it simmer there, and that's how they're gonna cook over. Hot, and I don't want to touch it. See, that one is still stuffed. I don't know if you could see that. Okay, and then I will try a bigger one so that you can see it better, because that was my daughter's. It's really small. So generally, that's why I make my meatballs big, because the stuffing, you want the whatever you stuff it with, you know. You want it not to disintegrate with the heat. So we'll try it one more time. Okay. See? There you go. Stuffed with cheese. Now if you want more cheese, what you can do is you can use polio string cheese, cut them in thirds, stuff your meatballs that way. But if you do that, freeze them first. Like rock solid frozen, and put them in your meatballs so that by the time the meatballs are done cooking, the cheese is kind of just melting, and then you have more cheese left over there. That's how I would normally do it. Unfortunately, today I did not have any polio string cheese, so I used shredded. So you can keep that in mind, okay? So, family style stuffed meatballs at your table. You'll love it. They're tender. Let me take a bite. And remember what I said about overworking them. Make sure you don't do that. Hi. Very tender. Make sure you don't overwork your meatballs, because once you do that, they're hard. And who wants dry, hard meatballs? Not me. Very good. Okay. Well. Wow. Total in my mouthful. Put that aside. Okay. This is what it looks like. Okay. Try the recipe. If you like it, as always, like the video, share the video, subscribe if you haven't already. I tell you this right now, you'll never buy pre-made store-bought meatballs again when you make them homemade this way. There's no way that there's anything better. Alright, thanks for watching. Bye!